Hey, welcome back to another video. Thanks for joining me. For my subscribers, I know it has been a minute. The end of 2020 was crazy busy. I got married, I moved, I remodeled my office, and on top of that, I was slammed with work. But we're back now, and I wanted to get this video out before the end of February because we kind of still think of January and February as the beginning of the year. And last year, I posted 20 tips and tricks for 2020. And so this year, I wanted to do 21 tips, tricks, scripts, and resources for the year 2021. But we're gonna get into it. We have a lot to cover, so let's get started. Okay, so we're gonna start off with 5 tips. And the first tip is gonna be about optimizing After Effects. The first thing I do when I notice that After Effects is chugging along is I will clear my memory. To do this, I would go up to Edit, Purge, All Memory. Now, you also have a disk cache, which is where After Effects stores pre-rendered files represented by the blue line on your timeline to a hard drive. You want to make sure that the directory for your disk cache is pointed to a hard drive that you're not working off of or that you're pulling footage from, so that you're not running into any bandwidth bottlenecks. Also, sometimes if you've ever run into this issue where you're scrubbing the timeline but the preview isn't updating, this can be fixed by purging the memory and the disk cache. So it's good to go through periodically and clear your disk cache. Another way to speed up playback is to go to the preview panel and tell After Effects to skip frames. Obviously, if you are really fine-tuning animation curves, you don't want to do this. But if you're just wanting to check timing and just see an overall view of how your animation or your composition is moving, you can do this. That way it only renders every 5 frames or every 2 frames and cutting down your time waiting for the RAM preview to finish. And then when you're ready to go in and fine tune things, you can switch it back. Okay, another way to optimize a composition that might be chugging along is to decide what is not going to change very much and render that out as a video clip and then replace it. The reason why this works is because every time you RAM preview your composition, After Effects has to take all these layers and all the effects and blending modes and everything and calculate that over and over and over for every frame. Now, if you have a composition with several layers, each having several effects, all that calculation, all that math adds up. So by rendering that out and replacing it, you're taking all those layers and the effects and making it into one thing that After Effects has to calculate. You're reducing the amount of math After Effects has to perform every single frame. And the great thing is, After Effects actually has a way to automate this process. To do this, select the layers that you want to replace, go up to Composition, Pre-Render, select your file type, hit Render. After Effects will automatically render those assets out, import them into your project, and it will automatically replace them in your timeline with the rendered version. And if you ever have to go back, you have those assets in your project panel. Okay, my 4th tip is to start actually using the increment and save feature. Go to File, Increment and Save. This is just a really easy, quick way to save a new project file with a number added to it so that you can preserve all your different ideas while you continue to explore creatively what you're working on. This is a good habit to get into. Oftentimes your early ideas can be your best ideas and you want to be able to preserve those while you continue to explore. All right, the 5th tip is to start learning shortcuts. They will speed up your workflow tenfold. Now, the most common thing I hear about people who are hesitant to learn shortcuts is it's too hard to memorize all the different shortcuts. Well, here's where you can start if you haven't already. Figure out the 5 most common operations that you do, and then learn the shortcuts for those. Once you have those down, move to the next 5. This does take a little bit of self-awareness. You have to be cognizant of what you're doing over and over and over that can be sped up with shortcuts. And I promise you that even just memorizing 5 to 10 shortcuts will dramatically speed up your workflow. All right, the next 5 are gonna be tricks. The first one has to do with the toggle between switches and modes. If you're sick of toggling between these two things, you can actually display both by checking these little buttons down here in the lower left corner. Also, another little trick is you can completely customize this area. You can hide columns that you don't use. You can rearrange the columns. One thing I might suggest is putting the parenting next to the layer names. Also, one of the columns that is off by default but that I like is the stretch column. You can reveal the stretch and you can now use this to drag left or right to retime your layers. By being able to actually grab this percentage and drag it left or right, you can see in real time what you're doing to the clip instead of having to guess at which percentage you should speed it up or slow it down. Next up, in the project panel, you can select any asset and see which composition it's being used in. And by clicking the drop-down menu, you'll get a list of those compositions and click any of those compositions and it will open it up. Okay, for the last couple of tricks, I want to talk about the control button. Let's talk about some of the ways that the control button can be used in After Effects. If you're using a shape layer that has several different shapes within it, you can actually select the individual shapes rather than the layer by holding Control before you click. This is very useful when perhaps you've imported some Illustrator artwork that you've then converted to shapes, and then you open the contents and there are a bunch of groups and you don't know which one corresponds to which shape. Well, using Control, you can select the shape, it will highlight it in the contents, and you can navigate the shape layer a lot more easily. Another way the Control button can be used is when you are dragging property parameters. So let's say you want to micro adjust the position. Holding Control and then dragging on the number will move that layer by decimals rather than by ones. Conversely, if you want to move those by 10 rather than 1 for a quicker movement, you can hold Shift and drag those properties. Also with Control, if you are working with audio and you want to be able to preview the audio manually by dragging the playhead, hold Control before you drag the playhead, and as you drag, you will hear the audio. Okay, so now let's move on to what I think are the 5 most useful scripts for After Effects. You say something?
Lame.
Huh?
Lame.
What do you mean?
Bro, After Effects is useless. You can't do unless you buy all these plugins.
Okay, first of all, if you actually believe that, then you don't actually know how to use After Effects. And second of all, scripts and plugins are different. Scripts don't actually add any functionality to After Effects. All they do is save you time by streamlining certain workflows. And as we all know, time is money.
Whatever, bro, it's 2021. Why do we still have to buy plugins? It's bullshit.
Yeah, but plugins aren't unique to After Effects. Every piece of creative software has plugins available. In fact, the amount of plugins available for a program just shows you how big its user base is. If you want a program that has everything, then yeah, sure, go spend $10,000 on Nuke.
All right, dude, you can waste your money if you want to.
Yeah, we know how you feel. Can I keep going? Let's get into the first one, which I think is by far my most used script, which is Ease Copy. Ease Copy allows me to copy the motion curve of keyframes and paste it to other frames. To use this, I just select any number of keyframes on a layer, I hit copy. Then I have the option to either paste the ease or the value. The value will be the actual numbers in the keyframe. The ease will obviously be the speed curve that you see in the graph editor. So basically what this script does is it takes what would normally take 20 to 30 clicks and compresses it down to 2. That's pretty impressive. Okay, next up is Flow. If you're F9ing all your keyframes, that's a good start, but Flow provides you with a collection of industry standard motion curves that you can apply to your keyframes. What I love about Flow is that it's easy to use, you can save your own presets, and you can apply these different motion curves to the in and out velocities of your keyframes individually. It's extremely easy to use and it's the perfect tool if you want to up your easing game. Next up is Animation Composer. Now the main part of Animation Composer is a console that gives you access to templates and animation presets, and I'll go more in detail on that at a later date. But what I really want to talk about is some of the free tools that come with Animation Composer that don't require you to make any purchases. And one of those is the Reposition Anchor Point tool. Now there's a lot of tools that reposition the anchor point, but what I really like about the Animation Composer one is that it allows you to reposition your anchor point while also modifying the keyframe. So let me give you an example of why I love this tool. Let's say you're in a hurry, you draw a shape, you start animating it, and then halfway through you realize you want to rotate that layer, but your anchor point is way off over here. Well, if you hit Ctrl-Alt-Home to center the anchor point on your layer, you're gonna mess up your motion path. However, with Reposition Anchor Point, I can reposition the anchor point to the center of my layer while modifying all the existing keyframes so that my layer doesn't actually visibly change its position in my composition. This tool is super useful and it's really my go-to tool when it comes to repositioning the anchor point. Okay, this next script is a must-have for anybody who's working with audios. If you do a lot of explainer videos and you're not using universal audio, stop. Get help and get universal audio. What this script does is it syncs your audio file among all your compositions and pre-comps and nested comps and whatever. It syncs it all so that if you're going 6 comps deep, you still are able to time up your animation with your audio. It's an awesome tool, it's really easy to use, and it saves you a lot of time. Okay, our 5th script is Boxcam. Now Boxcam is an interesting script because what it does is it creates a virtual camera that you can then animate in 2D space. This is particularly useful for motion graphics where you want some camera movement. Now, to give you an example of how I use this in a recent project, I had this animation where I wanted my character to walk down this long hallway. Normally what I would do is I would just animate the character in place, and then I would tie the background to a null object and just move that behind the character to create the illusion of parallax. But doing the animation this way creates a bunch of really difficult and unnecessary roadblocks. So with Boxcam, I was able to create a virtual camera, which is represented by this box, and then just animate that with my character walking. What that does is it creates a new composition that just shows whatever's inside this box. Now, so this is a good example of a situation that can be accomplished without this script. But Boxcam simplifies this whole process and thereby saves me time. And so for that reason, I think it's worth the money. Boxcam is an awesome tool and it opens up a lot of really interesting possibilities, and like all these other scripts, it saves you time. Okay, let's finish up with 5 resources. The first one is always check the video descriptions. Wait. Before you close out of the video, I know, I get it, video description, like it seems kind of silly to include that in this video, but you can never underestimate what people don't know. I can't tell you how many people commented on this video asking what this tool was. And I kept replying to those comments. It's in the description, it's in the description, it's in the description. So while you know this, because you're smart, you know how YouTube works, some people don't think to look in the description. So this tip is for them, not you. You can skip to the next one. So we'll see you there. Now the next one is Envato Elements. Now they're not sponsoring this video, but I think that they're such a good resource for the price that I wanted to give it a little plug. Envato Elements has everything from Illustrator files to stock footage to music to sound effects. But for the price, you have unlimited downloads and you have an unlimited license. Envato Elements is usually just a starting point for me that I then modify to meet my needs. If Envato Elements sounds like it could be valuable to you, consider using the link in my description. That'll get you a discount and it'll give me a little teeny bitty witty little kickback. It's not huge, but it does help support the channel. Okay, next up, did you know that I have a Gumroad, and on that Gumroad I post project files for you to download and tinker with. I get a lot of questions on a couple different tutorials, and I thought instead of trying to explain what I did in the comment section, I'll just offer the project files up for free. So I put those project files up there for free, but if you find them valuable, you can consider donating $1 or $2. It helps support the channel. Make sure you're following me on Gumroad though, because I will be posting more project files in the future. Right now, I have 3. I have the fire tutorial, the smoke tutorial, and the character animation comparison that I made. And the great thing about that character animation project file is you don't have to have the tools to be able to download that project file and open it up and tinker around with the character rigs, because like I said before, these scripts don't actually add any functionality to After Effects. So they're all just using functionalities built into After Effects, expressions, whatnot, to build these rigs. So you won't be able to play around with the tools per se, but you will be able to play around with the rigs and see how the different rigs perform in After Effects. Next up, I want to mention 3 extensions. They're all kind of similar, which is AE Juice, Motion Bro, and I mentioned this before, but Animation Composer. Each of these 3 extensions are consoles that have libraries of templates and presets that you can access right within After Effects, which adds a lot of value. I'm going to be doing specific reviews of each of these tools in the future, but I thought I'd just mention them. Each one of them comes with a set of free assets that you can use. So even if you're not ready to purchase, you can download these and kind of get a feel for them. I mean, pretty much all 3 of these offer sound effects, templates, animation presets, graphics, titles, lower thirds. I mean, the marketplace that these are attached to just has so many assets. It's incredible. Okay, last but not least is...
So at this point, I was gonna suggest you go check out Hold Frame, but while I was editing this video, I went and checked it out just to make sure it was still a thing, and it's now part of School of Motion. And so while I still encourage you to go check it out, I'm not really gonna talk about it. Instead, I'm just gonna share one additional trick. Okay, so let's say you have a layer here that has a little motion path that you want to move positions. Well, you can grab each keyframe and you can try to reposition the motion path by repositioning each keyframe, but you're never going to get it exactly the same as it was, and this is going to take way too long. So what you can do instead is by dragging and selecting all the keyframes, or another way to select them all is just by clicking on position. By having all the keyframes selected and your playhead on a keyframe, this is important because if your playhead's not on a keyframe, then when you go to move the path, you're just going to create a new keyframe. We don't want to create a new keyframe. We want to preserve the path. We just want to move it. So we're going to make sure our playhead is on a keyframe, and it can be the first keyframe, or it can be the middle keyframe, or the last keyframe. Doesn't matter which keyframe, just has to be on a keyframe. And now with everything selected, I can move the whole entire motion path over, and now my layer is moved.
Okay, so that about does it. We did 5 tips, 5 tricks, 5 scripts, and 5 resources. Now for the last thing, I've been working on a tool for quite a while now that has to do with shape layers, and I want to show it to you.
Shake it up, stop when the clock hits 13. You've been working, but you're flirting with the weekend. You can freak out. 1 in a million. You're a gem, shine when the light grows dim. Sing 1, 2, 3, 4. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.
So that's just a little something I put together. The whole purpose of this tool is to make working with shape layers inside of After Effects easier. So if you're somebody who works with shape layers and you are willing to give feedback, I'm looking for beta testers. So if you're interested, I'm gonna leave a link in the comment section below. Go sign up. I'm only gonna have a limited number of spots, so if this is something you'd really wanna be a part of, make sure you go down there and sign up, and I'll let you know what the next steps are. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button. It helps me in the algorithm. And if you like content like this and want to see more in the future, well, you know what to do. Make sure you're subscribed. And if you are subscribed, make sure you hit that bell icon. Why am I saying this? You guys know how to use YouTube, but you know what the bell icon does. It notifies you when the new video comes out, just in case it's another 4 months before I put out a new video and you forget about me. So make sure that bell icon is hit, and we'll see you guys in the next video.